Thank you. Okay, we're going to talk about AVID. I see that we have few people here that are relatively new in the business, so that's going to be a good orientation for you guys. From all of you that are pretty new in the business, pretty new is between a week to 3 months. Can you tell me what does it mean, AVID? Only the new guys. AVID is abbreviation of Agent Visual Disclosures. This is part of the things that we do during the closing of an escrow. So Agent Visual Disclosures. Let's start talking about a little bit about the law, and we'll get into details about the AVID. So let's talk about AVID. So first of all, is it mandatory? Can somebody tell me if AVID is mandatory? Now, remember, we're not talking about disclosure statement, seller disclosure statement. We're talking about AVID, which is the agent. Charlene say yes. Who says no? Okay, Marcus says yes. Dan says yes. Who says no? Come on, guys. I need to see a no. One no. Ilmar said no. Okay. Shanice said no. Okay, so let's see what is the right answer, guys. Yes, it is mandatory. In the state of California, the agents needs to complete an AVID, Agent Visual Disclosure. Now, so if it's mandatory, do we require to complete the AVID on a car form? Yes or no? Shani, you're funny. Okay, fine. Got you. Okay, so is that required to complete the AVID on a car form? Yes or no? Okay, basically it's a no. You don't have necessarily to complete it on a car form. You can complete it on a piece of paper. Just write whatever you see. It's not necessarily supposed to be on a car form. The car form is here only to help us and assist us to complete this, like any other thing in the car form. As long as we're talking about these guys, I want you to remember, a purchase and a sale agreement of a real property, especially when we're dealing with a residential real property, does not have to be on a car form. It can be on document that prepared by the agency. It can be a document prepared by a lawyer, and basically it has certain things that are required, but it doesn't necessarily has to be on the car form. So the car form are only to assist us. The car forms are only to make things coherent. Okay, so which agent is required to complete the AVID? The listing agent or the selling agent, guys? I want to see answers. Armando says, okay, so Charlene says seller. Armando says both selling. Okay, I have various answers. So it's both, guys. Both listing agent and the selling agents needs to complete this AVID. So let's see exactly what's the law say, okay? And this is written from the law. The California requires all agents to conduct, and I want you to emphasize about things, a reasonably competent and diligent visual, okay, inspection of the property offered for sale, and to disclose the prospective party all facts materially affecting the value and desirability of the property, okay? Now, it says visually. I'm going to talk a little bit about other senses, but this is the law, which means we are not the sellers, guys. Either buyer, if we selling agent or listing agent, especially listing agent, we are not the sellers. So when we're doing our AVID, we need to conduct a reasonable visual inspection. We'll open this later. And the things that materially affected. We are not supposed to know what happened before. We're not supposed to know what happened 5 years ago, 3 years ago, and so on, unless the seller told us. but we'll get to that in a minute. Questions about the law? Okay, good question, Dan. I'll get to that in a second. Good question, good point. Okay, remember visual. Any other questions, guys? Good morning, Lisette. Good to see you. Okay, so during the escrow, when the listing agent is required to complete the AVID, anybody knows? During the escrow. Tricky questions, guys. What if we find something in a previous listing on the MLS? Good point. What does it mean, previous listing? What does it mean? What if the roof has a large area rugs and no space? Dorothy, excellent questions. We'll get to that. Remember this. But upon getting the listing, is there a best time? Okay, I saw in the previous listing that the place has a leak. Okay. Did you ask the buyer, your seller, or the seller who was the buyer, what happened with that leak? And when was that leak? You had the buyer. And the seller was, how long the seller owned the property? Five years. Okay, that's it. It's got nothing to do with you because you're doing visual. You're not doing disclosure statement. You're not doing the SPQ, which is another subject. Okay, so all of you that wrote that during the escrow, why the listing agent is required, the law does not specify when the listing agent is required to descend. Okay, but we'll get to that. For those of you who wrote 17 days, we'll get to that in a second. But I want you to remember one thing. Disclosure statement and AVID are being eyed and are being judged and are being looked after only when we have this guy. Who is this guy? Okay, that's the judge. Exactly. When this thing go to trial, how would this look at the trial? Okay, if the buyer sues, he's going to sue the agents as well. So the judge going to look on your AVID, and how it's going to look at the AVID, because the buyer would say, oh, nobody told me, or and so on and so on. So which looks better? Let's see two scenarios. Agent has performed his inspection and disclosure just before closing, or that the agent done this when the buyer has sufficient time to make looking further investigation. So basically, within, and that goes to that number that I think Patricia wrote that, right? Patty, yes, during the first 17 days. Now, what are the 17 days? Here we are. The 17 days usually is the default for the inspection contingency, usually. But if there are 10 days, we're talking about the 10 days. So basically, okay, we look better if we do it within that time. Okay, now, the agent who doesn't conduct his inspection only after the buyer removed the property condition contingency, it's not going to look that good if he served the buyers well. It doesn't look that good. Okay, so think about that when you're doing your AVID, especially a listing agent AVID. Make sure that you do it within that time frame. Don't do it later. There is another thing is, which I'm going to show you in a little bit. Try to send it along with the disclosure statements, but I'll show you in a second. So now, We are the listing, we are the selling agent. We're submitting an offer. I think it's a good practice. Okay, you're serving your buyer well. On inspection, that's a good idea. Shani says that it's good to have it during the home inspection, because during the home inspection, I expect you as a buyer's agent to be there. So anyway, you have nothing better to do. The inspector is doing his job, or his or her job, and if the listing agent is there, you're not going to be talking to them for 3 hours. So that's a good time to do the visual. Excellent idea, Shani. And by the way, you're going to come up and see that a lot of listing agents are doing their visuals as well. Now, when you're presenting the buyer, there is a place that you can ask the listing agent for the AVID. So everybody is familiar with this, that you put in the disclosures and everything. And one of the items you can put here in others, you're requesting a listing office AVID. So you can put that as part of your request for disclosures. Put the listing agent AVID. Okay? Now, at section 14, at the time period, I don't know if everybody ever pay attention, we have a place, and you can see it here. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't put that here. Hold on for a second. You can, hold on. Sorry about that. Okay. So there is a place over here, as you can see my mark, okay? That the seller has a certain amount of days to submit their disclosures. So usually, the seller submit their disclosures, and after that, the buyer submit their removal of contingencies. Strongly not recommend you to submit removal of contingencies without seeing the seller disclosures. Do not do that. Now, since we have a time period that the seller needs to submit their disclosures, okay, this is the time that the agent needs to, it's a time for them to do the, I miss a page here. Okay. That's the time that the agent needs to submit their AVID. Now, let's talk about the AVID for a second. Okay. This is a sample of an AVID. Okay. I want you, okay, and read my lips. I want you to handwritten this. Now, if somebody doesn't have a nice handwriting like myself, type it, okay? But have it with your handwritten. Trust me, guys, you don't want to go to court, and it looks much better when this is handwritten. But make it clear and readable and written AVID. So let's take a look at what we see here, okay? We see an agent over here that actually wrote everything, okay? Actually wrote everything. She, every little detail, every scratch, everything. For example, kitchen converter has some scratch on the stove, okay? Write it, okay? Paint chips, or so on and so on. One thing I don't want you to do, number one looks bad. Number one, where is number one? Bedroom, number one? Mark? Yes. Paint chips, it is what it is. It doesn't matter. This is what the situation, and your job is to visually look at the situation. Now, what I don't want you to have, you see bathroom number 2. Apparently there is a bathroom number 2. I don't want you to write nothing to report. There is always, guys, something to report. Don't fall into that. There is nothing to report. Yes, Mark. She write possible crayon marks on wall. She didn't write possible from heat and weather. Where do you see that? Shipping paid. Shipping paid, shipping paid. I don't see it. Oh, possible from heat and weather. Mark, very, very good. Possible from heat and weather. Very good. Mark, excellent. Okay, I will get to that in a second. Do not make assumption of the situation. Very impersonal. Very good, guys. Very good, Patty. Okay, so she scored this year. Okay, but I gave this just to show that you have to write everything. So, very good, and we'll get to that in a second, guys. Okay, now let's move on. To substantiate your cause, I strongly recommend you, and today it's so easy, take lots of pictures. Lots of pictures. Take the pictures, and later on, when you close, you store this picture in your computer, and like any other documents, make sure they are there for at least 3 years, and you can substantiate the things that you wrote. Anything of significance will be mentioned in this section. Everything that you see, but we'll get to that in a second. Now, if you look at the report, the third page is after all these bedroom and parking and so on, there is something that says others. Okay? Others. Other observes or known condition not specified above. Remember I mentioned before that it says visual. Yeah, that's a good point, Lisette. I think so. I think so. Just see if you can drag it over there. It's good. Good idea. Let's see. But try not to have 8 GB a picture. So anyhow, other observed or known condition. Guys, I think I made a presentation about what agency or doesn't see. If you're sitting, and I had this conversation with Mark the other day, he's in ESCO with a property that sits on a major street. Now, major street has noise. Just write down something that there is traffic there. Okay? Just write down there is a traffic. Now, somebody will say, okay, the buyer knew that. You know what? Maybe the buyer didn't know that. Okay? Maybe the buyer came on Sunday and they didn't hear anything. Your job is to write down there is noise. Now, if you're sitting in the house and doing your AVID, and that's why there is a place over there that you write when and what time you actually did the AVID. It's very important. So you're going there at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and doing your AVID, and it's a sunny day. Then you hear a 747 goes above your head. Woo! Okay, the whole house is shaking because of that 747. So, would you mention that? Would you mention that there is a serious, of course, Ilma? Of course, you have to mention that there is airplane landing noise. Okay, you have to mention that. Now, assume that let's just say that this is LAX because it's a 747. Let's assume that you came there at 10 o'clock, and at 10 o'clock there was that landing runway is not operating at 10 o'clock. They're starting that at 12 o'clock. Okay, because sometimes you know there is runways that operating different times. You came there at 10 o'clock. You did the AVID. And there was no noise. It was beautiful forest music. Okay, nothing. You didn't write it down. So if tomorrow the buyer will say, "Hey, how come nobody told me about the airport noise?" You will say, "I came there at 10 o'clock in the morning. I swear to God, there was no airport noise." However, if you came in a different hour and you heard the airport noise, guys, please disclose that. Please mention it. You don't have to say a 747 was 500 feet above my head. You can say certain airport noise, okay, or certain landing aircraft or something like that. So let's talk about, okay, we spoke about what's going to be in a transfer disclosure statement. So remember before we showed you that the seller has a certain amount of time to send their disclosures. A good practice, if you're the listing agent, a good practice, if you can see here, see attached agent visual inspection. I strongly recommend you to check that box and send it along with your seller disclosures. The same applies to your buyer. This is the place that the buyer agent sign, and just put this over here, see attached agent visual disclosure, and this is the buyer's agent, the buyer who obtain, the agent who obtaining the offer. So strongly recommend you to do that. Good practice. Everything is there. Everything is disclosed. So don't be shy. Don't wait for the last minute, guys. Don't do your AVID during the final walkthrough. Don't do that. Okay, it's not good. So let's talk about what is not part of the agent duty to inspect. Okay, we spoke about it. Some of you already mentioned that. I don't expect you to climb on roofs and into attics. I don't expect you to crawl into spaces, Danny. I don't want you to remove, look under furnitures. However, if you see a big carpet on the wood floor, and it's expensive wood floor, you can mention that in room so and so you saw a very big carpet on the wood floor. Why is that? Because it could be that that wood floor is hiding something. Could be. So they're gonna somebody will come to you and say, oh, why you didn't say that? Or why you didn't say that there's something on the floor? If you mention that a big carpet was on that floor, you cover. Also, don't forget, guys, you took a lot of pictures. So if you took a lot of pictures and tomorrow somebody is going to come to you and say, guys, this is what I saw. I'm not supposed to remove those carpets. Okay, so remove floor covering or wall hanging. You're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to operate the appliances. You're not supposed to see if the stove is working, the air condition. You're definitely not supposed to measure the square foot of the improvements. Guys, if you walk into the house and it says 1,500 square foot and you have a suspicion it's 14 or 1,300 square foot, it's none of your business. Okay? You're not supposed to put it in AVID. You can tell your buyer, I strongly suggest you to measure that. If it's, for example, he's not doing an appraisal, you strongly recommend him to have somebody. If he's taking a loan, naturally the appraisal will measure the house. But you're not supposed to measure that. Okay? You're not supposed to pull permits. I'll say that again. You're not supposed to pull permits. Simple. And I see a lot of agents going out there for their clients and pull permits. Guys, you're not contractors, you're not architects, you're not anything that got to do with permits. If you look at the permits, would you understand what it says? Most probably not. So don't go into a field or on a landmine that you don't supposed to know. Okay? Again, guys, somebody says it before. Don't assume and don't suggest. Don't assume. So that's Mark when you saw that that agent that wrote cheap and probably from so and so. That was wrong. You're not supposed to do that. And let's see, for example, 2 examples. Okay? Should I not write this? Lisette, Sandy drilled into us to write suggest further. You can say suggest further inspection. You can write that, okay? But don't write I suggest that I assume that this is so and so, okay? You can write suggest further inspection, it's perfectly fine. What about a construction permit for an addition already made? What this got to do with you? Betty? Betty? Buyer ask who? Ask you? Tell the buyer do their own investigation. You're willing to take the buyer to the building and safety, but you're not supposed to do anything. What means the seller? If the seller asks you. Becky, I don't understand. Of course, you can give them a link, no problem. If the buyer asks the seller, so your job, the buyer asks the seller has a disclosures, and the seller needs to disclose whatever the seller knows. Exactly, Mark. Okay? Good. So, we talk about assume, we talk about description. So let's give an example. You see these beautiful ugly stains? Okay? What do we need to write when we see the enclosed mold stains? What do we need to write? Black spot on wall. So mold. Okay, Mark, you are perfectly right. Tony, you are perfectly right. Black spots on the bathroom wall. Guys, you do not write mold spot on the bathroom walls. On the bathroom wall. Why is that? Why is that, Mark? Very good, Mark. Because we are not mold expert. Excellent, guys. Excellent, excellent, excellent. We are not mold experts. We are doing visual. Let's give it another example. Everybody can see this stain that can come from leak or water stain. Very good. So we are not supposed to write brownish spots. We're supposed to write brownish spots on the bathroom ceiling, okay, or dark spot on ceiling. We are not writing leak stains on the ceiling, okay? We are not supposed to do that, okay? Very, very, very important, guys. Don't assume, don't suggest. If you suggesting further investigation, that's perfectly fine. But remember, you're not the seller. You do not know what the seller knows. Now, there is one thing that I keep saying, and some of you already say that. Whatever you do not know cannot kill you. Okay? I'll repeat that. Whatever you do not know cannot kill you. So if you don't know something, it's not going to come and hunt you in the future. That's your job. I'm not talking about seller. I'm talking about you as agent. So don't go and start investigation, okay? You're not CI Miami. Do not start an investigation. You come there, you see something, you write it. That's it. You don't start investigation and try to look what happened 40 years ago. What you don't know cannot kill you. Nobody's going to hunt you in the court of law, and you're not going to be found liable if you did whatever you need to do. Okay? Questions, guys? Okay. No, you're not. That's not your job. That's not your job to look for permits. How do you know there are permits? Do you understand about permits, Mark? Okay, so it's not you. It's part of the seller's disclosures. Okay? It's not you. It's got nothing to do with the AVID. The seller disclosures can say attach permits. Perfect. That's it. You've done your job because you're the messenger. There is to make a visual. Yeah, exactly that. If you're representing both sides, please talk a little about this. You talking to me, Paul? Yes. Okay. Yeah. Naturally, guys, if you're representing both sides, you have a dual agency. It's a fiduciary duty to both sides. We spoke about it so many times. You have to protect your buyer as much as you protect the seller. But again, if you don't know, you don't know. Okay? So don't be more Catholic than the Pope. You don't know, cannot hurt you. If you know, you have to disclose it to the seller, to the buyer. And even if you dual agency or not, if you know, you have to say the seller, you got to disclose that. Okay? You cannot hide it. Good point. So if you're a dual agency, both individuals must still produce their own visual inspection. So let me ask you, that's a good point then. You are, it's a dual agency and you're presenting both seller and buyer. Do you have to do two AVIDs? Yes or no? Good question. Mark says no. Who say yes? Paul say no. Who say yes? Shani, don't write yes because I say that. Okay, guys, you're completely right. You just have to sign in both sections and that's it. You do one and you sign in both sections. Okay, any other questions, guys? It's a beautiful day today to knock on doors, guys. That's it, guys. Until next time. No session next week. Your questions? Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's from my long time enjoy. Next week, no session, Black Friday. And I'll try to do a session the week after that. I'm landing just on just the night before, but it could be that we'll do a session. So, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. We should be thanking for all the giving that this country could provide us. And very good. All the best. Bye-bye.